A little bit of a late night kind of chat with this one. I had a moment today, a kind of epiphany moment when I was watching this podcast. So I don't know if anyone's heard of the Mel Robbins podcast, but honestly, changed my life. I've been listening to it for almost a month now. If you've not heard of the Mel Robbins podcast, honestly, let me get you onto something. She is absolutely insane. Like, talking to people and kind of analysing what they're saying, especially when it comes to professionals. She talks to a lot of people who are in the field of kind of neuroplasticity and learning how the brain works or how to better yourself, or there could be coaches or professionals who deal with CBT, for example. She will kind of chat to them and dissect what they actually are saying in layman's terms. But the one episode that I listened to today, I had to kind of rewind it over and over again to get it kind of in my mind, because I feel like it's already changed the way I kind of feel about how I think towards tinnitus, especially in this moment where I'm coming out of a spike. This particular episode was with Dr. Doty, and Dr. Doty recently passed away. He truly changed so many people's lives by just some of the things that he had said. You know, you hear quotes all the time, and there's so many kind of quotes out there that can make you feel good, but when it comes to tinnitus, it's like, how do I relate this to tinnitus? I just want something that's going to uplift me and, you know, make it make sense of what's going on in my life with the tinnitus. And this particular quote, I can almost guarantee is going to change how you behave towards your tinnitus and how you think towards your tinnitus. More specifically, how to live alongside it and change your perception on it entirely. Because although I know so much about tinnitus these days, this quote has kind of, I know it's going to shape me for the future, and I know that I'm going to think back to it all of the time. Some context before I actually get into the quote itself and dissect what it kind of means to me and what it means for tinnitus is that Dr. Jim Doty, he actually dedicated his whole entire life to exploring the power of the mind and how we can reshape our inner world to reflect on our day-to-day reality. He truly has kind of inspired this whole video. So, you know, it's just a reflection on, you know, I want to learn more about him and what he did with his life, because I've only heard this one little snippet of his life and what he's learned, but his life truly sounded like that he had so much meaning and so much passion towards something that so many people kind of brush off. So just a moment to honour what he said, and that, you know, you need to listen to what he was saying on the Mel Robbins podcast. I'll link it in the description, but let's get into it. Let's talk about what he said and how I feel like it's going to shape your life with tinnitus for the better. The brain can't tell the difference between something that's real and something that's vividly imagined. What does that mean for tinnitus? When I heard this quote, I kind of replayed it 10 seconds, you know, when you go on Spotify and then you replay it and then replay it again. And I kept going back and I was kind of listening to it and I was like, that's so true, okay? And what he was talking about before he got onto this quote, before he mentioned what he wrote, is the fact that manifestation is something that's so kind of brushed off, and it's seen to be something that's so kind of holistic and far-fetched and like woohoo kind of thing. And not many people look into it. And I'm definitely one of those people. I used to be one of those people towards cognitive behavioural therapy, but that's changed my life. But I've always still been like, what is manifestation? Manifestation to me, before I listened to this podcast, was writing down something 1,000 times and eventually it will come true. In a way, that's correct, but it's more to do with your subconscious mind. What that quote was basically saying to me is the more you think something is true, the more it's going to reflect in your day-to-day. So the more your subconscious is really going to take that all in. For example, if you think back to your childhood and who you grew up with and the beliefs they had, they would probably have rubbed off on you without you even thinking about it subconsciously. And you may still have these traits in day-to-day life now without yourself even thinking about them. But one thing that I need to do, and I feel like everyone should do, is get a piece of paper and just write down kind of all of the things that you believe in your life right now that probably stemmed from your childhood or your mother and father's input in your life. And that's essentially what he is saying in this quote, is that the more you kind of imagine something in your head, or the more you subconsciously believe it, it shapes your entire reality. So tinnitus obviously is processed by the auditory system, but obviously it has to go into your brain and you have to perceive it in some different way. And obviously neuroplasticity is a thing and you can reshape how you feel towards your tinnitus, but the main thing is the fight or flight mode. So when we hear tinnitus for the first time, or when we start getting stressed by tinnitus for the first time, we can go through a huge stress response. So our brain will perceive it as a threat and we will hone in on it and we won't stop thinking about it. And of course, we'll get these thoughts, which are completely natural, where we'll wake up in the morning and think, oh my God, my tinnitus is still there. Is it ever going to go away? And you can also think to yourself, if my tinnitus doesn't go away, I'm going to have the worst life ever. I'm never going to live the life that I want. It's going to stop me from doing things. And even if you don't kind of say these things without kind of being conscious about it, your subconscious more than likely will be thinking it. Throughout your life, your brain has stored beliefs. So going back to, again, when you're a child, it creates beliefs that, you know, if something like this happens, it's wrong, it's not good for you. For example, if there was a loud bang when you were a child, or sudden noises or things that kind of scared you, you're subconsciously going to take that all in and all that information in. So if tinnitus ever happens and you get that sudden noise that's unpredictable, your brain is obviously going to go in this fight or flight mode because it shouldn't be happening. It's a danger, right? So how I perceive the quote is, if you imagine something about tinnitus, or you say something to yourself about tinnitus so many times, it will become your reality and you will let tinnitus ruin your life. 100%, I feel like a lot of you, like 99% of you, would have gone on different forums and searched on the internet about tinnitus, and the first thing you see is there's no cure. Obviously, that is going to set yourself on fight or flight, but you're also going to go down rabbit holes on these forums where people are saying, life is, you know, it's not worth living with tinnitus, or something really, really doom and gloom to do with tinnitus. And these people have pretty much convinced themselves with their subconscious mind and with this kind of mindset, tinnitus means you're not going to live a happy life, because they have convinced themselves so much that it has become their reality. Obviously, you can turn this around if you're conscious about it, but if you're not, you're just going to be in this constant cycle of being on fight or flight mode, and your body is going to continue reacting to that by letting you live a miserable life, because you are not accepting other thoughts. You're not kind of putting into your mind positivity. You're not even considering that reality. So I've always said on so many of my videos that the easiest thing to do is reframe your thoughts. And obviously, it's hard to reframe your thoughts when you say them out loud and it's like, well, nothing's working here. You can say it as much as you want sometimes and it feels like nothing's going in, but unconsciously it is, because I felt exactly the same way. When Anna Pugh, when I had my one-to-one conversation with her during my auto coaching, she actually said to me to reframe your thoughts. Like, first thing in the morning was my catalyst for, you know, going down this spiral. I would say to myself, I'm gonna have a crap day. And then she would say to me, just reframe the thoughts in the morning. And looking back, I obviously kind of thought, this isn't going to really do much for me. But now here I am 3 years later with a completely different mindset on tinnitus. And I always think in this habitual way. So I am proof, and I've proved to myself that changing your thoughts does change your reality. And in a way, I manifested that, because I kept saying to myself that tinnitus wasn't going to ruin my life, tinnitus wasn't going to ruin my day, tinnitus won't stop me from doing things, and here I am today. It has manifested itself into existence. And also, another random one, when I first started this channel, I really, really, really wanted to go on Good Morning Britain, which is, for all my American viewers, it's a TV programme in the morning, obviously. And I used to watch that programme every single day before going to school. And I just said to myself, I really, really, really want that to be kind of my goal, to go on Good Morning Britain. And since I've been doing these videos, you know, it's always been in my mind, and then I've been on it. I've been on it, and I manifested that into existence simply by having that as a goal in my mind. So with tinnitus, you know, having goals where you will eventually have a life where it doesn't bother you, or you can coexist alongside it. If you keep thinking that as a goal, it's going to happen. It's going to reflect in your reality, because it's in your subconscious all the time. And I just want to track back again, okay, to when we were children and when we were first living in the world and embracing new experiences and finding things that are threats and things that are positive, or things to watch out for and things to kind of stick by. It's the same with tinnitus. When we first are aware of tinnitus, or when tinnitus first arises, for example, it kind of is a way of how I feel like it's like being reborn in a way, because you mourn your past life of silence. If you've ever experienced silence, you mourn that, and you also mourn the fact that life will never be the same. The first thing people do when they have tinnitus is Google that, that they find out there's no cure, and they Google things and they find the worst. And it's so easy to keep all of this in your subconscious because you are on fight or flight mode. When something unpredictable happens like tinnitus, it's so easy to grab hold of the things that are negative, because essentially your brain is wired to survive. Your brain is wired to seek out threats so you can continue on the human race itself. And I think it's very, very hard to keep reminding yourself of that. But kind of once you tune into the fact that you have wiring in your brain that you can't control, then you can be more aware of it and you can make these subtle changes in your subconscious mind. The brain truly does create emotional realities based on existing thoughts. So the more you're listening to myself and the more you're listening to like the Mel Robbins podcast, for example, like in my instance, I feel like it's already changed my life, the more it's going to become your reality, and you're going to kind of live a happier and much more positive life because you are learning more about yourself. You're learning more about kind of how the human brain is wired, and you're learning about how you can retune it and live the life that you want just by changing your thoughts and doing these different things. What if tinnitus wasn't here to ruin you, but to reroute you, to slow you down, to help you protect your energy, to reconnect you to your body in a new way? What if that was the case? Well, it's probably never kind of crossed your mind because you're so focused on there not being a cure and trying to find the actual stem of what tinnitus is, where it's coming from, what the symptom is. What if that is, it's irrelevant and you just need to focus on kind of what tinnitus is telling you? Obviously you need to kind of go to the doctors and get your tinnitus checked out if it's new, obviously. But aside from that, what if tinnitus is here to change your life? Because it's changed mine. Tinnitus has completely changed my life in ways I could never ever imagine. And I know I've said this 1,000 times, but I found my life's purpose at 20 years old with tinnitus because I started sharing my experience and finding people like yourself dealing with it. I found myself through you guys, and tinnitus has made me a much more stronger person because it's made me open to learning things about CBT. It's made me open to listen to these podcasters that I probably would never have listened to before that. I think I would have been a very closed-minded person if tinnitus wasn't in my life, and it's changed me for the better. So I want you to think right now in real time and drop in the comments, what is something you now value because of your tinnitus? What is it? Have a think. What is something that you value in life that you wouldn't if you didn't have tinnitus? Is it that you listen more deeply to people? You protect your hearing now. You now understand your emotions a little bit more. Or maybe you're more open to connecting with like-minded people with tinnitus, You're connecting with people who are sharing the same experiences as yourself, and that is so amazing. Would you have done that before tinnitus? Or would you have done it so deeply and consciously? Probably not. So share something in the comments. I would love to read that. If I could go back at the start of my tinnitus journey and tell myself one thing, it would probably be, I'm not broken. My brain is just trying to protect me, but I can show it a new way, and it doesn't have to be led by tinnitus. It can be shaped by tinnitus in a more positive way. So comment below one belief that you're ready to get rid of maybe, or one belief that you want to hold on to, that you truly believe tinnitus has shaped you for the better. So just a quick one today. I just wanted to hop on here whilst it was all fresh in my mind, because I just find it absolutely amazing how one person's kind of thoughts on the world can change your life in such a small amount of time. And Dr. Doty has obviously dedicated his whole life to the brain and how it acts and how it can reconnect with, your life and how it can change your life essentially. And he dedicated his whole life to this, but just kind of one quote stuck with me. And I never really have quotes that stick with me like that. And I do think I will take that with me in the next kind of few years or for the rest of my life. So I think he's changed a lot of people's lives, and I can't wait to learn more about him and about what he did with his life, because he just sounds like an unbelievable chap. So I'll see you again in the next videos to come, and I hope you're all doing well. I just also want to say that your comments have, honestly, they've brightened my mood so much. Just such thoughtful comments, and I read every single one of them. you change my life every single day, and every kind word, I just want to pass it all back on, all of that kindness, because you fill my glass up so full that I have to just, fill other people's, because I just get so much love from you all. So just a huge thank you, and I will continue doing these videos because I absolutely love it. And I will see you in the next one. Okay.